Back here, First Things First with Chris Canty in for Chris Carter, who is in Atlanta this week. Time for your AT&T wake-up call. Newsflash, the Super Bowl is this Sunday. Matchup of the greatest quarterback-coach combo of all time. First, the youngest quarterback-coach combo of all time. Chris Canty, what, in your opinion, is the X factor in this matchup?
I think it's going to be the running backs for both teams. For the Patriots offensively, James White, he's an accomplished receiver out of the backfield. He's third all-time in touchdowns scored in the big game, and he's only played in 2 Super Bowls. So I think that the Patriots will look to utilize him in the passing game. You saw the Rams struggle with that against the Saints in the NFC Championship game. Alvin Kamara had 11 catches for 96 yards. I think James White will be a big part of this game.
Can the Rams get to Tom Brady with someone other than Aaron Donald? Only 3 times in Brady's entire career has one player had more than 2 sacks on him in a game. So if they're going to get to Brady a bunch of times, it's going to have to be a collective effort. Dante Fowler, their midseason acquisition. Ndamukong Suh, their offseason acquisition. Can one of those guys add some punch to what we know Donald will bring? That, to me, could be the X factor that tips the game in the Patriots' favor, or in the Rams' favor, pardon me.
All right, moving on to someone who knows a thing or two about the Super Bowl, Chris Long. He helped the Patriots beat the Falcons in Super Bowl 51. He helped the Eagles beat the Patriots in Super Bowl 52. This year, he had another productive season with 6.5 sacks on an Eagles team that made another run. And he's helping us break it all down. Joining us now live from Atlanta. Chris, good morning. Thanks for getting up and hanging with us.
No problem. Good morning, y'all.
Well, so let me ask you what it's like being at the Super Bowl as a spectator after you were at the Super Bowl as a player for the prior 2 years. What's the week been like for you so far?
Well, it's funny, for 8 years, my season was done like clockwork on January 1st, so you get used to winning fast, and certainly it's better to be playing in this situation, but I'm still happy. Life is good.
All right, before we get to X's and O's and some of the great stuff you're doing off the field and this football game, let's get to what's really important. You were a freshman when our own Chris Canty was a senior at UVA, and if I know anything about Chris Canty, he, first of all, I don't know what transcripts he fudged to get into UVA, but that's neither here nor there. Do you have any embarrassing tales, anything to tell us about Chris Canty before he was Super Bowl champion Chris Canty that you can tell us about?
No, because to me, he was like team captain Chris Canty.
There you go, C-Long. There you go.
I'm not turning on Chris Canty.
I didn't think you were going to be snitching on here on national television this morning.
No,
C-Long, I got to ask you this. You've been in the big game the past 2 years, the former being with the New England Patriots, and you guys beat the Atlanta Falcons in Super Bowl 51. Talk to me about the preparation that you went through the 2 weeks leading up to it and how much of a difference it is being in a locker room with a lot of guys that have Super Bowl experience.
Yeah, the experience helps a great deal. I think the experience helps in what you talked about, which is the preparation, and it helps knowing the lay of the land when you get to an Atlanta or Minneapolis or wherever the game's played, knowing you're going to have to, media and radio row every day. It's going to break up your day. There's going to be a lot of commotion, chaos. People are going to be pulling at you in 100 different directions. And when you get in your room to sleep at night, finally, it feels like you're in this fishbowl. You're never alone. You never feel like settled. And that's what being at the Super Bowl is all about. And getting guys to prepare in spite of that is a big part of it.
All right, Chris, you guys invented the underdog role to the degree that you had it. You had the masks, you had backup quarterback. It was authentic. It was real. Now the greatest dynasty in the history of professional football has tried to take that mantle and say, actually, no one believes in us. What has been your reaction seeing the most successful team ever take on your guys' underdog role?
Well, I like the way you're framing it. It's cool to influence people. So if that's what's going on, it's an honor. But I think at the end of the day, this Patriots team does have a lot of detractors and doubters. For a long time, people have waited for their demise, and this year they certainly have been a different type of team, and they've had their lulls like anybody else. So people jumped at the opportunity, and they remember that stuff. But at the same time, yeah, they're favored in the game. So I don't know if they can put the dog masks on, but whatever gets those guys going. Tom's a great motivator. Bill's a great motivator, and they have had their doubters.
Chris Canty gave us a little insight into what happens in the last 48 hours, that there are some tweaks that are made to the game plans. There are a couple of new plays that are being put in. Your Eagles took down the Patriots last year to win Super Bowl 52. What advice now would you give Wade Phillips and the Rams defense for slowing down Tom Brady? Because obviously Wade is watching and he's going to need a few more extra little pieces of advice and insight to tweak for that defense.
Well, the front has to stay patient. The front can't get discouraged. You're not going to touch Tom for long periods of time, timing, passing. They're going to take away your best player. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at Aaron Donald. Guys like Fowler and Sue have to step up, and I think they will. And there's going to be times where in your head you're saying, man, it's the third quarter and we haven't really gotten a good hit on him. But like we did in the game, we stayed after it, and eventually they have to go away from account when you get there.
Chris, your Eagles beat the Rams in L.A. the past 2 regular seasons. What is the key, in your opinion, in slowing down that explosive Rams offense?
Well, I think actually it's your offense controlling the football, and that's something that the Patriots have done well. If I'm the Rams, I want the ball at the beginning of the game, seeing the Patriots' last 2 opening drives against the Chargers and then against the Chiefs. They were tone-setting drives. They were about 10 minutes apiece, and that's demoralizing, not just for the defense, but it puts pressure on the offense. If we go out here and go 3 and out, this could get ugly early.
Aaron Donald might be the best player in the NFL. We always talk about quarterbacks, guys who score touchdowns. But okay, you said it. He is. You played with him. Yeah. I assume he learned most of it from you, but the things he didn't learn from you, what makes him?
He did.
What makes him so special? Like what? There's a lot of great athletes in the league. What makes him differentiate himself?
So I will take credit for being the first one to say he's a Hall of Famer, and I stand by that. So, but at the end of the day, I think his work ethic, you get into the film room, you think you're the last guy in the building. You're an 8-year vet, and there's this rookie, you got to kick him out of the film room, and that's the way he works. When you pair that with his physical ability, his violence on the field, his leverage, he's got the leverage of somebody who's 5'10", but the length of somebody who's 6'5". He's got great hips. He flips his hips well. He's got a second and third move where most guys don't have a counter, and I think that's what makes him great.
Chris, I want to bring it a little bit closer to home and talk about your team. There have been some reports out of Philadelphia that Carson Wentz was selfish or egotistical and that he needs to change in terms of his approach and relating to his teammates and the coaching staff. To that, you say what?
To that I say, well, first off, I'm like, well, it was 11 days ago, so I don't want to give it legs like that. But at the same time, I just feel like guys came out in defense of Carson right away. The reality is Carson's a great teammate. He's always been an exemplary teammate to me, and I'm not a big fan of anonymous sources, so I try not to give it too much legs anymore.
What do you make of the ability? It felt to me watching that when Nick Foles was in there, that the secondary played some of its best football. You guys looked more as pass rushers like this Super Bowl champion Eagles. Obviously, the quarterback is not actually affecting the way the defense is playing. What do you make of how those lined up and some of the narrative surrounding that?
Well, I think at the time that Nick stepped in, and unfortunately for Carson, when his injury got too much to play with, we got healthy in a lot of spots. I mean, pure and simple. I mean, you look at some key offensive pieces. We acquire Golden Tate. Sproles gets healthy, who's still an amazing player. We get Timmy Jernigan back on defense. We get some keys back in the secondary. Some young guys step up. They guys that were coming off the street are starting to learn the defense and gel together. So for Nick's, for the sake of Nick, everybody kind of got on board and was playing good ball. It was unfortunate for Carson because he missed the boat on that. We had a lot of the same issues we had 2 years ago now, where we were able to overcome it and still win the Super Bowl. But that's the anomaly. That's the exception to the rule. We had a lot of those same issues this year. It just wasn't enough to overcome.
Chris, at this point, we basically know everything there is to know about Tom Brady. The way he eats, sleeps, trains, relates to his wife, as a father, as a teammate, all of it. He made headlines by saying recently, you think I play to go to Pro Bowls? We're actually trying to win rings. Can you just give us a little bit of insight into is there anything we don't know about him, the way he trains, the way he approaches games like the Super Bowl, into how competitive he is? I mean, what's something that's just not quite out there yet about Tom Brady, even if it's something small?
Man, that is a tough question because everybody's trying to crack the Tom Brady code. But I just think, I remember one situation when I got New England, and I've been a good player in the league, but by no means a superstar, in my opinion. And I get to New England, and, you know, Tom comes up to me and promptly introduced himself. Hi, Chris, my name's Tom. Nice to meet you. And I'm like, yeah, I know your name's Tom, dude. Like, you don't need to introduce yourself. But that's the type of teammate he is, and it's not an act. I mean, he genuinely cares for everybody in the locker room, whether you just got there or whether you've been there 10 years. And he's the type of guy that, you know, in your locker room, when your best players are humble guys, down to earth, and take care of each other, your team's going to be good too.
Chris, you doubled up on me on Super Bowl rings. You got one with the Patriots and one with the Eagles. Which one do you cherish the most?
Well, you know, I got to say it's a tie. I mean, one of them, 28-3, will never be duplicated, that comeback. And being a part of that machine that's kind of churned out a bunch of championships was great. You know, Philly was like a 3-month adrenaline rush, you know, that run, you know, including when we had Carson, you know, still. We were picked to be like 27th in the league, last in our division. It was unbelievable before Carson went down. It became more unbelievable with Nick. And, you know, that run we went on and ended with beating the Patriots, who I think were like 10-point favorites against us. So at the end of the day, they were both different for a lot of reasons. No matter how many championships they win in Philly, will always be the first, and that's special.
Chris, your football resume is unreal, obviously. #2 pick of the draft. You're a guy who now is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. I actually find what you've done off the field to be more impressive. You are one of, and I say this with knowing how many great people in the NFL, one of the greatest human beings in the league as far as what you've done with your platform to help people who are less fortunate. You might be rewarded this year with the Walter Payton Man of the Year award for that, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. But I am curious, what made you decide last year you were going to play this game for free, and what has made you decide to become such a humanitarian in addition to football player?
Well, for me, I mean, my wife and I have always had causes we got behind in St. Louis. I mean, we tried to be very charitable in that community. We did a lot of that more under the radar. And there was a realization I had at some point in the league where I said, you know, I've got this platform. We've got this great, you know, vehicle to make change in fans and the NFL community. You know, we need to do more things. We need to form a foundation and do some public stuff. And, you know, fortunately that happened around the same time that I got on good teams, and that elevates everything you do off the field. So whether it's our clean water initiative at waterboys.org or the educational equity stuff that you're talking about, they're decisions that we make knowing that we need to lean on the fans. And the fans, like you said, I donated my salary. Okay, that's cool. But the fans doubled the investment in educational equity in all 3 cities I've played. So without them, you know, the footprint's not as big.
All right, Chris, well, as Nick mentioned, you are the 2018 Walter Payton Man of the Year Award nominee presented by Nationwide. Tell us a little bit about what that means to you.
Well, it means a lot. I mean, it elevates all 32 nominees, causes. You know, Nationwide's done a great job of elevating an award that was already prestigious. You know, they give us $50,000 to be nominated. If you win, you get $250,000 to your foundation. So, obviously, we're all trying to win. But at the same time, it's not about the award to me. That's not why any of us do it. You know, and somebody said something to me. They were like, hey, you know, all your hard work's paying off. And I said, no, the hard work's already paid off. It's paying off when we provide clean water or books to kids who don't have them, you know, and it will continue to pay off whether we win an award or not. But it does help elevate our causes a lot.
Chris, you've had an amazing pro career, 11 years. I know toward the end of it, guys start thinking about retirement. I'm going to give you a chance to break some news on our show first. Are you thinking about retirement, or are you going to come back and play in 2019?
I will break the news that for the month of February, I'm not exercising. and it might feel like retirement, but I don't know what's going to happen.
All right, well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Really good stuff. And continue with the important work that you're doing. It is
Thank
very
you, man.
appreciated.
Appreciate it, big fella.
Appreciate y'all. Take it easy.
Much more First Things First right after this.